let's spend a few minutes talking about writing for audio because this is going to significantly change the way that you write. I don't know, maybe not significantly depending on how you write already, but it's going to make you think about things that you haven't thought about before. So the first thing is speech and action tags. This is one of my books. It's Offsite Attraction. I'm just going to give you some examples here. I have it specifically pulled up to this section because we're going to talk about text messages. But let me see if I can find a little bit of audio here, audio, dialogue. Okay, so this is a really good example right here. We've got some dialogue happening. Now, normally when I first started writing, I would do things like, Rhonda, blah, 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 mom, she said, her voice gentle but firm, right? And now I don't write that way. Now I'm going to give some action and drop you into the scene. I'm going to give the dialogue, but my only job here is to make sure that the reader and the listener knows who's talking. That's the only job, right? And so I don't need to say he said, she said, all of those speech tags. I just need to make sure that it's very clear. And so in this section of dialogue here, mom, her voice was gentle but firm. We've talked about this. I can't keep. This is where I would do a double click. You'll hear about that later. I know, her mother cut in, the forced cheers stripped. I don't mean to burden you. You're not a burden. You know that. But you need to take him to court. Until you do, I can't. You know that, right? So there's no speech tags in here. It's just going from one to the other. They're cutting each other off, and so people know who's talking. There's only two people in the scene here. In the audio, I'm going to edit that so that it's, the person is being cut off, and their voices are going to be slightly different. I didn't really differentiate them right now, but they will be different I already recorded this one. So that's the only goal with this. So you don't need a bunch of tags. You just need to make sure that it's clear. And if you don't make it clear in the manuscript, you're going to figure that out when you narrate it, because you'll be like, wait, who's talking? And then that will be the signal to you to make sure that it's a little bit more clear the next time. But let's also talk about, so that's the first thing, speech tags, dialogue tags. Let's go over here. This is a contemporary series, and so there's a lot of text messaging, there's written notes, there's all of these different things that are happening in the book. And what's so amazing about formatting is you can make that very clear and obvious in your manuscript, but when you're recording it, maybe not so clear and obvious. So I've done a couple of different things. I'm still playing with this. This is not something that's like an exact science. Different narrators do it differently. If you listen to a lot of audiobooks, you'll hear this, that people do it differently. Some people will read the text messages. The voices will be different enough that they won't even say the names of who's texting, right? This text chain happens to be between 3 different people, technically 4. And so I felt like I needed to tell people who was texting, and not only in audio, but on the manuscript as well, because there's only 2 options for formatting those text messages. So what I chose to do is just put the name above where the text message is, and then I actually read that out loud in the audiobook. And so I'll say, whatever she is speaking, the person, Rhonda, who it's her POV that we're seeing through, I don't say the name for that because that's just her responding. So unless it's intermittent with these other ones and it's not clear. So I just make that choice as I go. So, she says her thing, and then I'll say, Anne, yep, Friday is perfect. I have to be out and showered by 10:30 though. Tina, because you're almost 40, right? And the name will be a little bit different, but I still say the name to make it very clear who's listening. Now, I did have a book that I just published this year where it was like there were in between every 3 or 4 chapters, there was an interview section. That was new to me. I had never done that before, and I was kind of kicking myself when I went to record the audiobook. And so I tried it out where I read it in interview format, like the manuscript had it, right? Where it's like this person, da 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 da, this person, da 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 da. I did have a few listeners say that was a little bit tedious. And so I think next time around, I'm probably not going to do that. Next time around, I'll probably do the first one, the second one, so they know who's speaking, and then I won't say them the rest of the time. So it's work in progress. You can do these things however you see fit for your manuscript, but think the end goal is just that the listener is going to know exactly who's talking. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about is when you're giving these descriptions, and I don't know if I have a good example here. This is mostly just text messages, but okay, for example, here in this paragraph, When I'm placing my person back into the scene, and this is a good strategy in writing in general, but I want to make sure to give the description first before I give the rest of the information, because when people are listening, they're not looking at the page to be able to see that information. Like our brain, when we're reading it, kind of absorbs some of the stuff that's a little bit further down the paragraph, and so it's a little bit easier to understand when you're reading it. When you're listening, you have no context as to what's coming in the future, and so you really have to be careful. So for here in this paragraph, she lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. I placed people in the scene first, and then I went on to say, now he wasn't just parking lot guy, he was urgent care guy, Rocky Ridge guy, blah, 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 blah. And so when I write, I'm very careful about making sure that the physical description and the placement in the scene happens earlier than maybe I would have done before, purely so that when people are listening, they're not confused and disjointed and getting kicked out of the story. So those are some things to think about as you're writing to make sure that your audio narration goes more smoothly and so that your listening experience, your reader's listening experience goes more smoothly. Let's move on.